Chapter 93. During the security check before boarding the plane, Siddle saw a square object in her backpack. After boarding the plane, she opened the zipper and saw a square, exquisitely crafted Rubik's Cube quietly lying in the corner of the backpack. Why did this thing seem to haunt her like a ghost? Was it trying to haunt her? When she got home, she would find a cesspool and throw it in, to see how long the thing inside could last. Siddle sneered. But she couldn't do anything to it now. The temperature on the plane was suitable, the surroundings were quiet, and her tense mind finally had a leisurely space to relax. The girl leaned back in the soft chair and quickly fell asleep. It wasn't until she got off the plane that Siddle remembered something. Siddle called her aunt, and after telling her that Belch had been brought home, Aunt Kayla was very enthusiastic. "I've wanted Belch to leave Derry for a long time. A few days ago, I wanted to tell him to come find you during the summer break, but he didn't agree. Why did he take the initiative to follow you now?" Belch seriously explained to his mother, "It's for my own safety." Kayla obviously didn't understand what Belch said. She laughed, "Then you have to try to study like me. By the way, you didn't bully your sister this summer vacation, did you?" Belch. He was quite confused, glancing at the tall, thin blonde girl beside him. What should he learn from Siddle? Killing people with bare hands? He tactfully replied, "I learned a few things too. And quite useful." Although he wished he had never learned those things. Kayla didn't hear the awkwardness in Belch's answer. She was a little surprised by her son's obedient attitude during this phone call. After hanging up the phone, Siddle saw the news that had just been published 3 hours ago but had already taken over the headlines of many newspapers. The house of the famous and wealthy Walter family caught fire early this morning. All XX people died in the fire, no one survived. The police are taking the remaining bodies out, but they can't bring all the bodies out of the raging fire. The accompanying image was a scene of a house burning fiercely in heavy rain, looking a bit strange. Siddle scrolled down a few articles and saw a news item in the corner. Early this morning, an unidentified woman who was a guest in room 307 of the XX hotel died. The body was in a very strange condition. The police are currently investigating the woman's identity. It seemed that the Charlie family's sacrifice had failed. Penelope also died. Even though she didn't return to the Charlie family's old house, legally, she and Charlie were still husband and wife. When she learned what happened next, Siddle didn't feel much. She put down the phone with a calm expression and sneezed. Her prediction came true. Siddle had a fever. After returning home, Siddle went to the hospital first. The wound on her head was just a superficial wound. Her physique wasn't prone to scarring, it would heal soon. Only the wound on her palm was a bit deep, but not serious. It would be fine after being bandaged. But because she had been in the rain for half a day, plus she was too tired, Siddle fell ill. She took some medicine, then took a nap. When she woke up, although her body temperature had dropped, her limbs were still weak, her head was dizzy, and she had no strength. When Siddle woke up, it was still daytime outside the window. She wrapped herself in a blanket and curled up on the bed, not wanting to move. But after lying there for a while, her phone suddenly rang. She picked up the phone and found that it was a video call from her mother Ray. Siddle pinched the flesh on her face, not wanting her family to see her pale and weak appearance. It seemed that Ray was competing for some award in the academy, and Siddle didn't want her mother to be distracted by her. She patted her face, trying to make herself look a little more spirited, turned around, pulled the curtains, dimmed the lights, and answered the video call. However, things were beyond Siddle's expectations. Ray was going back to the United States. Mom is going back by cruise ship. Mom is at Port XX, and will be back soon. Mom has some things to take care of when she returns home, so she won't be going home. But because she has to go back in a hurry, she brought a lot of things. Siddle, do you have time to come help Mom? Siddle blinked. Because of her illness, her brain functioned much slower, and it took her a few seconds to react, indicating that she was free. After saying goodbye to the cheerful woman in the video, Siddle hung up the phone, got up, changed into simple clothes, and didn't forget to bring her backpack before going out. Because she had just returned from work and was sick, she had not had time to solve the Rubik's Cube. At this time, the Rubik's Cube was still in her backpack. Siddle left home with her backpack and hailed a taxi to Port XX. In the driver's seat, the driver was a middle-aged man dressed in black. He silently glanced over and nodded. Siddle got into the car. After sitting in the seat, she realized that her body was still limp and powerless. The cold medicine probably had not worn off yet. The driver drove from the bustling city to the coast. The light outside the car window gradually dimmed. It seemed like the day had turned to dusk. The driver drove silently, obviously not intending to talk to the passengers. But when he reached a remote road, a dark figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was a person whose entire body was covered in a black cloak. The brim of the black cloak was very large, covering the entire face. From a distance it was impossible to see the person's appearance and gender. The person was standing straight in the middle of the road. The driver continued driving, honking the horn, but the person was only 2 or 3 meters away from the car and did not dodge. Beep beep. It seemed that there was no other way. The driver stopped the car in front of the person. At the same time, Siddle's body, who was feeling dizzy and dazed, swayed. She raised her head and saw the person in black outside the car window. Knock knock. The person raised his hand and knocked on the windshield. I want a ride. The voice was hoarse. It was unknown whether it was a man or a woman, and it was also unclear how old they were. You can't take a taxi here. The driver stuck his head out, as if sighing. His tone was negotiating. Move aside, I already have a passenger. Give me a ride. However, no matter what the driver said, he just calmly repeated one sentence. Siddle sat stiffly in her seat, her back involuntarily straightening. She looked at the person standing outside the car, and for the first time, she felt such strong fear. She didn't even know who that person was, and as soon as she saw that person, Siddle felt suffocated, and a slight shiver seemed to spread to her nerve endings, running along her veins straight to her heart. This wasn't fear of ghosts, murderers, or any other fear of being violated physiologically or psychologically. Siddle didn't even understand why she was afraid. But in Siddle's head, there was a voice whispering to her, leave immediately. No matter what, she couldn't come into contact with this person. She licked her dry lips, so scared that even her basic thinking ability slowed down. I already have a customer. The driver kept repeating to that person. No, no need. Siddle said, leaning over to open the car door, I'm not taking the car anymore. Her fingers were shaking, so she pressed the door twice to open it. Siddle quickly got out of the car without taking her backpack. She didn't look back and walked quickly back along the road, faster and faster. The man in the black cloak got into the car, sat in the back seat, glanced at the direction the blonde girl left, then turned back to look at the middle-aged man in black, and coldly said, drive. The driver was silent for a moment but didn't ask anything and started the car again. That person looked at Siddle's backpack left in the car, reached out a pale hand that seemed to have no blood left, opened the zipper and took out a Rubik's Cube. That person sneered. Stop. The driver didn't stop the car, slowly saying, Sir, I have to drive to the designated place. This is the driving rule, I told you to stop the car. The person suddenly became angry. The Rubik's Cube from that person's hand hit the driver's head. One sharp edge scratched the driver's head. Blood slowly flowed down, but the driver still did not stop. The person sneered and cursed, then quickly leaned out of the back seat, reaching out to grab the driver's steering wheel. The car started to sway on the road. The person laughed softly. The laughter was full of malice. I know where you're going dash. Bang. While the two were struggling, the car lost control, crashed through the iron fence on the side of the road, rolled over and fell into the water. This place was very close to the sea. After Siddle got out of the car, she walked very fast, almost running away. However, after walking for a while, her speed slowed down. Finally, Siddle stood at an intersection in the city. She looked around blankly, people coming and going, noisy and bustling, occasionally a car roared past on the road. Why did she run out? Siddle vaguely remembered that her original plan was to take the medicine and stay home until tomorrow. She didn't even intend to get out of bed. Something seemed wrong. Siddle wondered silently, her mind was dizzy, and she kept feeling like she had forgotten something. Ding ding ding. The phone rang. She picked up the phone. It was Belch calling. Sis, where are you? I bought the steak from the restaurant you wanted to eat at. I'm outside. Siddle said, frowning, trying to remember, I think I just went out. I'll be back now. She said. When Siddle got home, she started coughing again because of the wind all the way. She poured herself a cup of medicine with trembling fingers, and after drinking it, she started to feel sleepy. Belch seemed a little worried, but at that moment, Siddle didn't have the energy to talk to him. She waved her hand and returned to her room, looking at her bed and the messy blanket on it, suddenly startled. She pursed her lips, quickly took out her cell phone, found Ray's number and dialed. For some reason, Siddle suddenly had the thought of wanting to see Ray. Beep beep, very quickly, the call was connected, a tired but gentle woman's voice rang out on the phone, Siddle? Is there something wrong at home? That's right, Ray was preparing for some international academic award in the next few months. She shouldn't bother her mother. But Siddle still asked unconsciously. Mom, did you contact me today? No, Ray's tone was a little flustered. She said, I'm always at school today, I haven't contacted you, honey, do you miss me? At the end of the sentence, there was a smile in her words, a little happy to tease her daughter. Yes. Siddle calmed down, maybe she is seriously ill and has strange thoughts. She didn't ask anything more, just calmly talked to Ray for a few sentences and then hung up. Siddle was too sleepy. The tired girl closed her eyes and crawled under the blanket on the bed. Perhaps because she was sick, her mind wasn't clear, so she just went out for a walk. She had just slept for a few minutes when the phone next to her pillow suddenly rang. Ding ding ding. Siddle was awakened, half awake, half asleep, eyes half open, pressing the call button, not even looking at who was calling. Who is this? She asked softly, her voice still not awake, soft and languid. After a while, a hoarse voice as if her throat was severely damaged came from the other end. Nothing. The person said, I just want to hear your voice one more time. Beep. The call ended. Siddle was stimulated by the sound and immediately woke up. She picked up the phone, trying to think who was calling her. However, at that moment, the number on the phone disappeared. She didn't have time to see anything. The pale-faced girl looked at the phone for a while, her memories fading like the tide, her eyes gradually going blank. Did something just happen? Siddle thought for 2 seconds, felt a headache coming, and gave up thinking about it and went to sleep. So catching a cold was such an unpleasant thing, she hadn't gotten sick easily since she was young, and this was the first time she had an impression of catching a cold. Siddle fell asleep again. This time, nothing bothered her. A huge cruise ship with an old appearance and even peeling paint was floating on the calm sea. The sky was dark, the last ray of light hidden behind the thick clouds. It was dark. A person wearing a black cloak was sitting on the railing of the second floor of the cruise ship. That person lowered the hand holding the phone, pale fingers pressed the Rubik's Cube in his hand. That person started to turn the Rubik's Cube. Clank. With just a few twists, the Rubik's Cube seemed to come to life, moving automatically, making a clicking sound, constantly changing shape. Boom. The person sitting on the railing threw the Rubik's Cube onto the deck of the cruise ship. He raised his head slightly, and laughed sarcastically and maliciously. People all have desires, but I don't have that anymore. The Rubik's Cube deformed, the gates of hell opened, before the devil in hell stepped out, the person leaned back and fell into the deep sea. The walls of the cruise ship twisted, a monk in leather clothes with a head full of nails walked out, followed by 3 strange humanoid creatures. The monk with a face full of nails waved his hand, and was about to open his mouth, when suddenly there was a sound of chains behind him. The chains were blocked by his subordinates. The monk turned around and saw another monk with a face full of nails. When Siddle woke up, it was already the next morning. Perhaps the cold medicine had taken effect and her condition had improved a lot. After resting for a few more days, she was completely normal. Siddle returned to her happy home life. Belch was shocked by her sister's living habits. In Derry, Siddle had deliberately changed many habits to disguise herself. But when she got home, she didn't have to pay too much attention anymore. Even when food was delivered, she ordered Belch to get it. Belch, who ran errands 8 times a day. Nothing to say. Didn't dare to say anything. The peaceful, comfortable life lasted for more than half a month. Until today, someone video called Siddle. It was Milo, the girl who had tried to summon Candyman because of racist bullying but was stopped by Siddle. "Hi, dear Siddle." Milo was still a bit shy but still extended the invitation. "I'm getting married soon, I want to ask you to be my bridesmaid, would you like to?"